Hi, my name is Lynn from L&J Goods. Thank you so much for joining me for this video tutorial. I am so excited about the Fusion Mineral Paint release of 7 new colors. So in this video, I'm going to share 7 projects and a bonus project using each of the 7 colors. And I'm actually going to complete these projects with the sample sizes. Yes, the sample sizes. And that even includes a side table. So stick with us and don't forget to watch to the end of the video for that extra bonus project. Take a look at the projects that we're going to be starting with. These are all thrift store or flea market finds. So the first thing I'm going to do is give them all a really good cleaning with a mix of Fusion's TSP and water. The first project is this mirror, which was once attached to the top of a tall dresser of some type. I decided that I wanted to give it a little bit more interest and texture, and so I'm using the Iron Orchids Designs Felicity mold and air dry clay. Then I'm going to layer them up and glue them onto the mirror frame with Titebond Quick and Thick. I'll allow the air dry clay to dry completely before applying paint. These are pieces of cardstock that we're inserting under the frame of this mirror so that I don't have to tape it off. That's going to make my painting job a whole lot easier. One other point I'd like to make is that I don't need to sand this piece because it already has a little bit of a rougher texture. So I just went ahead and gave it the first coat of the new Fusion Mineral Paint color in Tapestry. One of the things I love so much about Fusion Mineral Paint is, number 1, the built-in top coat, and number 2, its beautiful coverage. This should only take 2 coats. Our tendency is to want to get full coverage with a first coat, but with Fusion, I find that applying that first coat in a thinner layer creates a better adhesion and a nice base for the second coat. So I've applied 2 coats of Fusion Mineral Paint in Tapestry, allowing each coat to dry for at least a few hours. And now I'm going to get ready to finish this little mirror. Fusion has a built-in top coat, so there's really no need for me to add an additional sealer, but I am going to use Fusion's white liming wax just to create more depth of texture and to create a little bit of a whitewashed look on this mirror. Simply apply the wax with a soft brush and then wipe away any excess and allow that wax to dry. Here is a little plywood homemade umbrella stand. I pulled it from my stash. It had previously been sanded to remove any rough edges and also any chipping paint. I'll give this the first coat of Fusion's Acacia Pear. Here's a tip. When I'm using these sample sizes and I know that I need to then apply a second coat, I put my brush in a little Ziploc bag. I want to preserve every bit of paint that I have in that brush to be able to apply my second coat later. And of course, after that first coat is dry, I'll go ahead and apply my second coat and allow that to dry completely. For this umbrella stand, I envisioned it as a rustic container for Christmas florals or a Christmas tree. So I'm using the IOD new release Crimson Velvet Transfer. Love that Fusion and transfers work so beautifully together. They're like peanut butter and jelly. They're like cheese and crackers. They're like best friends. Once that fusion has dried, because it has a built-in top coat, the transfers just glide right on. After the transfers have been applied, I seal the entire piece with Fusion's Tough Coat in a matte finish. I'll link everything that I used in the description box below. Project number 3, I had a vision for this. I wanted to do a reverse decoupage technique on the glass. So it would be as if you are looking out a window at a beautiful lavender field. So for this project, I chose the new fusion color called Lavender Haze. So even though this is a piece that will be used for interior decor, it is a window, and that brings me to this point. Fusion is an indoor-outdoor paint. It can withstand freeze-thaw cycles, and it is UV protected. So seriously, I paint my exterior doors both at the cottage and at the shop at L&J Goods, and I've never had an issue with fading or with peeling or chipping. I've given my window frame 2 coats of paint. I've cleaned up all of the edges and cleaned the glass really well. Now let's do that reverse decoupage technique. I'm using a Decoupage Queen rice paper, and that will be applied to the back of the window frame, image side down. Yesterday there was sun and there was rain. The entire rice paper gets trimmed and then fit to size in each of the window panels. Using the Fusion's Decoupage and Transfer Medium, I just begin to apply it in an even thin coat over the surface of the glass and press the rice paper into place. Work a section at a time, being careful not to leave any gaps in the medium. Check for any air bubbles, and when you're satisfied with the application, go ahead and apply a coat of that medium over the back side of the paper. Of course, you're going to see that wet medium looking cloudy until it dries, but after it dries completely, you will see the most gorgeous view of lavender fields out your window. Next up, I have a little jewelry box, which I had started to use for another project. So this has a glossier finish, and I'm going to want to take a 220 sanding block or sandpaper to scuff sand the surface of the box, just to be able to give it a little bit of grip, and then wipe away all of the dust. Once again, I'll be applying the first coat of Fusion's Velvet Plum in a thinner layer, and once that has dried completely, I'll add a second coat for complete coverage. I typically allow my paint to dry overnight before using the IOD transfers. I'm using IOD's Fairy Tale Florals for just an added touch of whimsy and prettiness. Easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all. Here I'm reapplying the hardware. Now, once Fusion has completely cured, and by cured I mean it takes a good 3 weeks for paint to completely cure. It'll be dry to the touch and you can use it gently, but usually if you have any scuffs or any problems with the paint adhesion or any marking up of the paint, it's going to happen within those first few weeks. Here I scuffed the drawer with the hammer when I was putting the hardware back on, so I just touched up a little bit. You can always touch up within those first few weeks with no problems. And then we'll go ahead and apply the Fusion Tough Coat in a matte finish to seal the transfer in place. For this project, I'm using Fusion's new iron clay. It's a beautiful terracotta color. I'm coating this antique rolling pin with 2 coats of paint. I didn't do any prep other than just cleaning the rolling pin.
I gave my heart away, went a bit too far, so wrong. Oh no, open up my...
I'm applying the Transfer Lover of Flowers, and I have selected some different florals that have these warm red, rust, and yellow tones. We really appreciate you hanging out with us today at L&J Goods. And thank you for subscribing, following. Leave us a comment. Do you love these new fusion colors? I'd love to know what your favorite is. I had more than enough of the iron clay paint in my sample jar to do another project. So I am giving you a bonus project at the end of this video using the iron clay leftover paint on a plastic pumpkin to create a faux terracotta effect jack-o'-lantern.
You fooled me once, but I ain't falling twice.
And of course, I'm going to finish the rolling pin by sealing the transfers with Fusion's Matte Tough Coat.
I'll shine. Shame on you. Should have seen what you were like. Dangerously nice. You got me all lost. So blind, so blind.
Have you ever had a piece that you've painted and it never sold for a variety of reasons? It could be the wrong color, it could be the wrong legs, who knows. Anyway, this little cabinet, which should have sold very quickly, has 2 drawers and a little door. I think the height was a little bit off too, so I had JR build a new base and add legs to this piece. And then I decided to repaint it with this new color by Fusion called Elmwood. It is a complex, warm, neutral, and believe it or not, I am going to paint this entire cabinet 2 coats with that sample jar of paint.
There's no one like you, my little girl. Your eyes so blue under the...
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're using Fusion mineral paint is that they apply too much paint. So I'm finishing this piece with a sample jar. That's about 2 ounces. With the pint size of paint, I can usually do a dresser and 2 side tables, or a big hutch and a small table. Using a little less paint in your paintbrush also helps to eliminate brush strokes when you use a good quality brush. I am going to try to get every last bit of paint out of this sample and paint the legs with the leftover in that sample of tapestry. We changed out the hardware and there you go. I think this is going to be a beautiful cabinet for someone's home.
Live your life, dream big, don't forget.
I was really stuck with what to do with this vintage plant stand. I'm giving it 2 coats of Fusion's new Chestnut M.
Rocks are meant to be picked up and thrown.
You can see that I do have some transparency with that first coat. This is how your first coat should look. After that dries, a second coat was applied. I confess it took me a minute to figure out what to do with this homemade plant stand and this color on it to make it more appealing. So I am thinking and thinking and thinking this whole time about how I can transform the look of this. It's quarter sawn oak, so it has a lot of texture, and JR suggested that I distress it with a sanding block to bring out some of that wood texture from underneath, and I really like what this did to the piece already. Then I added transfers to this piece also using the IOD Joie de Roses transfer because it has a lot of those same very warm tones. So I did my usual cutting apart the transfer, piecing it all back together to create, I think, what ended up being one of my favorite pieces. Seal the transfers in place with a coat or two of Fusion's Matte Tough Coat. I added an extra coat because this is a plant stand. So there you go. There are my 7 projects using 7 sample sizes of the new color collection from Fusion Mineral Paint. And I completely emptied 5 of these samples, but I have enough of these too to maybe paint a frame or something. Hey friends, it is always so good to have you here with us at L&J Goods. We so appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us and hope that you will find valuable inspiration here. Be sure to watch to the end for this little faux terracotta jack-o'-lantern project. L&J Goods is a brick and mortar shop in Medina, New York, and you can also find us at lnjgoods.com. I picked up a whole bunch of these little plastic pumpkins at the thrift store and paid just like $1 each for them. This one didn't have a handle on it, so I sanded it first with a sanding block, and then in order to make sure that I had really good grip with my paint, I'm applying a coat of Fusion's ULTRAGRIP. It's a bonding agent. I had a little bit of paint left in my brush, but that's okay. I mixed it right in with the ULTRAGRIP, but that's okay. I applied 1 coat of ULTRAGRIP. Then let it dry for at least 12 to 24 hours. It needs that long for the chemical reaction to take place, which gives it that really good stickability. I applied 1 coat of iron clay after the ULTRAGRIP had cured, and then decided that I wanted to add a little more texture to the pumpkin, so I mixed in the Fusion FRESCO, which is a texturing powder. You mix the FRESCO with the paint to the desired consistency that you want to achieve. I kept mine pretty lumpy, and then I applied that mixture as my second coat and let it dry. The last step was an application of that Fusion liming wax. Apply a generous coat over the entire surface, really working it into all of that texture from the Fusion FRESCO. Wipe away the excess with a soft cloth. And then into that wet wax, I brushed in some dry Fusion FRESCO powder to really give it that chalky, dusky look.